everybody knows what I know, and then I'm always learning, but everybody else knows everything. So I work very differently than Judy. I'm working with hand-built slabs. I've been working with these tiled plates. They started out just as plates, but then I started putting a more pronounced foot on it so it can hang. And this is bas-relief I'm cutting out. I'm drawing from my garden, cutting out thin slabs of clay, cutting out the flowers, and adding them. I love the color of my clay, so while this will be glazed in the background, the top is left the color of the clay. And what I was not taught in undergraduate or graduate school was terra sigillata. So I'm starting to work with terra sigillata now. And it is one of the processes, unlike perhaps Maiolica or Stephen Hill's approaches or whatever, this I think anybody can do. It can be very, very basic. I did print out
The being passed.
okay, 20 of them, and it's just this latest DVD that we acquired. Jeremy Randall does a very nice explanation of terra sigillata. What I was doing was simply taking my bone dry clay, mixing it with water, adding some sodium silicate, letting it settle out, and I got, this is my terra sigillata. And I don't know how much you know about terra sigillata, but it is, if you just let clay settle out, there should be a layer of very fine particles before all the sludge on the bottom. And that very fine particle, when applied to bone dry clay, fires. It seals the surface, and it just gives a beautiful sheen. It is what Greek and Roman pottery was. They were not using glazes, they were using terra sigillata. Native American pottery, essentially the same thing, no glazes, terra sigillata. You can use white terra sigillata, you can mix white terra sigillata and add colorants to it. You can glaze over it. Anyway, so the neat thing about terra sigillata, so here's just a little bit that I mixed this week. Yes.
Can you do that with any kind of clay?
You have to test. See, now I took Cheryl Zacaria's workshop, and she does a lot with terra sigillata, and her terra sigillata crazed on my work. So it has to fit the clay. The fact that I'm making this out of the same clay almost guarantees that it's going to fit.
Right.
And I just find this amazing. So this is bone dry, so I took a chance bringing it. And when you just brush this on, it soaks right in. If I mess up, I take a little X-Acto knife or whatever. If I don't stay in the border, I'm not going to worry about getting this perfect. And I'll put 2 or 3 coats on. So this is just slip. I mean, it's clay water and a little
super fine particle slip.
Exactly, super fine particle slip with a little sodium silicate.
How do you access that middle layer?
How do you
Access.
siphon? I went to the fish store, bought a plastic tube. You suck it out. Hopefully you don't drink it, and then you just like that. You take a piece of dry cleaning bag, and it polishes to where in almost no time it is now burnished. Now you can only fire this up to cone 1 to 2. I fired a cone 04, so I'm real lucky. It will stay shiny and sealed, and then it's also a nice way to finish the back. It does resist glaze a little bit, so one of the nice things is when I go to glaze around the edges, when I get it over that surface, it wipes off really beautifully. So this is just, and then I'll do my borders and what have you. So I'm doing more with that.
So it's just a low fire technique, though.
It's a low fire technique. You can do raku and smoke firing. It looks really nicely, but the sheen will burn out above cone 1 or 2. So yes, you would do a nice high fire. I look at high fire. Oh, isn't that nice? But I just.
Do you know what the sheen is? What are the particles?
It's just that it is such a fine particle that it's just going to, almost like you can take your finger and rub it and it just becomes shiny. And it just retains that shine. So that's very nice.
What clay body are you using?
I am using, I actually still go to North Carolina to get high water clay Stands Red. But I think
I use that
standard
too,
would be
but
fine.
I was looking for a supplier in this area. There's
Baltimore, there's one
is it?
now. They were actually,
close.
yeah, relatively speaking.
How often do you go there?
My sister lives there, so I go. Either they bring up well, there's actually 3 little things I'll share. The other thing is I've been working a lot with lace, and so many of you use impressions and what have you. And I think when I was doing high fire glaze, I could glaze over an impressed design, and as with Judy, it breaks differently. But I'm working with low fire. It doesn't. If I glazed over the lace and just fired it, you'd see a little bit, but you wouldn't have any of the definition. There's no flow. And so I would normally, like Judy, I will just wash this off when I get home. But anyway, see, that's really thick. And I'm working with 2 base glazes. One's called Jackie's Base and the other one's Gloria's Base, and I put mason stains in them. So all I do, I'm very, it's just very sloppy, but I'll just brush it on. I know I have a sponge here. And then this is almost like if you've ever done etching. It's kind of like that etching plate where you have to rub it the right way. And I will just wipe it off, and hopefully that impression is just at a nice level that every little thread shows up. And then I usually glaze. I've done terra sigillata in the background, I've glazed in the background. I generally don't wax.
You don't put a clear glaze over?
No, and that's something interesting. It seems that since my impression is the way it is, that actually seals. There's enough glaze that either went on originally that soaked in, or it's melding under the surface. It's doing something that it's kind of sealing that surface. So it's just a nice way to define your pattern. If you're not, you could put a clear glaze, I'm sure, over it.
Do you rub that off while it's still wet, or can you do it when it's fully dry?
I like to do it while it's just soaked in, while it's fresh.
That's glaze that you just put on.
That's just glaze, right.
When you combine it with the terra sage in that particular area, what do you do first?
I would not, the terra sage has to go on the bone dry clay.
Right.
So I would do that, fire it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then, and again, everybody's studio is different. I don't know why it took me so long. I used to always use the drill, the paint mixer. They come in all different sizes. I don't need 5-gallon buckets of glaze, so I mix much smaller quantities. And I can't believe what a difference an immersion blender makes. So if you don't have one, find one at a garage sale or bite the bullet and buy one. The last technique, I do a lot of drawing on my work. I like to do, as some of you have seen, I do some Greek vases, or I'll do patterning. And another little tool that they have at Ceramic Supply, I used to buy underglaze pens. I used to buy all these things. You can use little baby enemas and, all kinds of things to glaze at. But these precision decorators, to me, are the best. And all it is, a little squeeze bottle, and they give you caps, and then they give you the little lid, nozzle, and then the different tip. So this is a broad tip, but I find that they're just, now hopefully I'll get it on secure so it doesn't just like that. So what I do on my bisqueware, let's see if I have my little pattern somewhere. Probably just disappear. Oh, here it is. So what I do is I'll take stencil paper and I come up with a pattern, and this is how I get my repetitive pattern. So here's just a little design. So I'll put it on my pottery. I'll just give myself a little guideline with the pencil. And I can do this repetitively, I can turn it around, whatever I want. And then Also, they give you, I think there's 14. The smallest one, I don't think any glaze will ever go through it. It's so fine. But it is the one that will fit into all the other nozzles to clean them out. Because they are going to get stuck. So you run it in hot water. That little one is just the finest needle, and so it goes down. So all I'm doing is regular glaze, the same general. No, it's not coming out now. I will thin it sometimes. It's blob. So you can always get like a piece of newspaper.
Tube lining is the technique that they used to use for tiles in the Victorian
I
time.
bet.
Oh, yeah?
They would, use those ones where it's got like a pattern, something like that, like an arabesque or flower or something like that, and you create an area, and then you fill in that area with glaze.
I have also squeezed wax through this. So, the liquid wax will flow through that and it gives you a nice resist. So anyway, it's just a way. I used to use a very fine brush for this, which, is just so futile.
Edit.
And so this just makes it, and you can be very free. You don't have to do a pre-drawn design.
So this is Ryan Greenheck
Oh, yeah,
workshop,
same.
and he does glaze trailing, which is really fun. And I like this one. I tried to make small amounts of glaze and keep them, and they just dried out in
Right.
those little tubes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't do it. So I found this thing, and it's
That's neat.
that different kind of thing, and it's the exact same idea.
So you're just squeezing
And
that
if you
in.
wanna, where's that piece of paper? If you wanna write down what it is, if you like this, if you think you would really like that thing, it's XIEM.
Slips from China.
XIEM Precision. It's a website. XIEM Studio Tools, just one big word. XIEMSTUDIOTOOLS.com. And it's like $18.
They sell it.
And I don't remember how much those are, but I think they were more. Do you remember how much those are?